Hey, Magic fans, welcome back. We're here for another episode of Spoilers. Welcome to the channel. This is Capnclyde's Magic MTG, and this is the spoiler session for Modern Horizons 2. Yes, that's right, boys. We've got spoilers out for Modern Horizons 2, and I could not be happier with some of the cards that I've just looked at. So this is really sweet, and I cannot wait to talk about these with you. So before we get started, remember to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you get notified as soon as these go up, because when spoiler season hits, I post these the same day. So it's not on a schedule like my box openings are. This is as soon as I see the information, I post them for you guys. So let's get started and talk about some sweet returns in Modern Horizons 2 that came from Modern Horizons 1. First off, we have the Giver of Runes is back. So this is a sweet card. Of course, everybody knows about it. It was in Modern Horizons 1. It's almost like a Mother of Runes, toned down just a little bit for Modern. Real sweet card. It's a great card. It's a good card. Not too overpowered. Still strong enough to make an impact. Glad to see this get reprinted. Not real pricey at the moment, but this extra printing will make it cheap enough to actually have people be able to use these in their decks as the Modern environment starts speeding back up, as we start getting back into actual gameplay in person with cards. Next, we have the Monarch of Modern Horizons, Force of Negation. This is Modern's Force of Will. This is as good as it's going to get, boys. And this card is pricey, seen as high as $100. I haven't checked the price today, but this is a much needed reprint for a very expensive rare. It's only been in one set. Am I a little upset they reprinted it so soon? Eh, maybe, because of course I have some of these cards, because they're worth money. I bought them back when they were a little cheaper, but I do think this is a good reprint because we need it, because this is going to be this is a staple in the Modern format. It's not too overpowered. It's just like Force of Will, but it has the drawbacks that actually makes it stable enough that it doesn't overpower the format. So, good reprint. I'm glad to see it back. Now, let's get into the juice of all the new sweetness. So, we'll start on the low side, and we'll start with an uncommon. We have the Flametongue Yearling. If you guys remember Flametongue Kavu from back in the day, boy, do I miss that card. The Yearling here is 2 red for a 2/1 with multi-kicker 2. If you use the multi-kicker, it comes into play, or comes into the battlefield with +1/+1 kicker on it for each time it's been kicked, and when it enters the battlefield, it deals damage equal to its power to target creature. I see this as being a real game changer, mainly because of multi-kicker in late games. You can make this thing a 4/3 for 6, kill almost anything, and even as a 2/1 for 2 red, it kills most creatures that can give you trouble. Good sideboard card, great for draft, and I think we might actually see this played in some decks. Like I mentioned, as a good sideboard card. Um, it might not get a whole lot of play because it is 2 mana, it's just a 2/1, but depending on which direction the format goes, and it's looking like it's going kind of creature heavy, this might be a good alternative to have removal plus creature all in one for the format. So now we're getting to some real juice. Next, we're going to start with some rares and mythics. So our first rare, the Rashad Import, 1 blue for a 1/2. It has Island Walk, because sure, why not? And for 1, you can tap a land. So basically, this is Rashad Import on a creature. Much like we talked about before with the Lion's Eye Diamond, where you actually reprinted Lion's Eye Diamond with an actual creature that's a 2/2. This is not a bad card. It's not Rashad Import, which is a lot harder to deal with, but it is still a good card that you can use in those lockdown decks, or any kind of hate bear decks to keep your opponent tapped down while you slowly beat them up. So it's a rare. I think it's a good card. It has Island Walk, so it can actually have a little bit of evasion. Not too bad. Do I think it's going to be real expensive? Probably not. It may find its niche though, depending on what the rest of the set comes out with. So this might be a card to keep an eye on. So moving forward to our next sweetness, it just keeps getting better, guys. We have our first mythic called Grief. So for 2 black and 2, it's a 3/2 with menace, and when it enters the battlefield, opponent reveals their hand, choose an online card from it, and that player discards it. So basically, it's a 3/2 creature with a duress attached to it for 4 mana. So, okay. But it has Evoke, which is exile a black card from your hand. So if you exile a black card from your hand, you can just put this into play for free. Now, the old Evoke rules stated that if you evoked a creature, it was sacrificed, but it doesn't say that on this card. So I'm really interested to know if the evoke will still be the same, or that it has to be buried. And if it is, I don't know how good it'll be. Now, with that said, This could be really good in one of those decks that manipulates the graveyard, wants to get out first early, wants to empty its hand. I think there's a lot of potential for this, especially since it being a mythic. I think we're going to see something special with this, and it might be a card from the rest of the set or a mechanic in the rest of the set that really sets this card off and makes it good to play. Right now, it's just okay. I don't think it'll see play. But once again, we got to watch what that evoke rule is because it doesn't say to bury it. So if they change that to where since the card doesn't say to, it goes into play by sacrificing a black card. I mean, a 3/2 on turn one that you get to use with a duress. That seems bonkers good. But let's hope that's not it because that'd be really busted. So moving on to the next one, we have Profane Tutor. This thing, boy yeah, suspend 2 for a black and a colorless, and to give you the short version, guys, this is the Monarch Tutor. So you search your library for a card, put it into your hand, and then shuffle. The only drawback is for 2 mana, you have to suspend it for 2 turns before you can tutor. Yes, that is a very big drawback. But yes, this card is not so good. I mean, they can get ready to counter it or whatever. It can be good in any kind of other deck. There's talk of them. I mean, Bloodbraid Elf's already been unbanned. There's talk of we might see Shardless Agent. And if we do, these cards don't have any casting costs, guys. Look, no casting costs. Like, you could literally shards into Profane Tutor and go fetch a card out of your deck. Any card, whatever you want. And even at face value of paying 2 and suspending it for 2 turns, on 2 turns, on turn 2, if you lay this to set up your hand and then you have 2 turns before it goes off while you start messing with your opponent, I don't see how this card can't be good. And plus, for the EDH guys out there, this is a must run. This card is going to be a very expensive rare, I believe. So, all that said, we'll keep her going. And the next card we have, Unmarked Grave. So, sorcery is a rare. It says search your library for a non-legendary card, put that card into your graveyard, then shuffle. So, very interesting. It's very much like Buried Alive, except it's 2. You can't get legendaries though, which will help it be less broken. But I still think there might be something that we could break with this card. You know, things like Vengevine and those other cards like that. Maybe you even run this in some form of a Dredge hybrid or Dredge in general, just to start throwing things in your graveyard like the zombies and so forth. I think it is too slow for that, to be honest with you, but like a Dredge hybrid with like Vengevine or whatever, depending how the other cards are when they come out, this could also be a very good rare. And also 2 EDH is going to love this. So, we'll move on to our next one. Next we have Thrasta Tempest Roar. So for 2 green and 10, just 12 mana, you too can have a 7/7 trampling haste creature that has trample over planeswalkers, because that should be a thing. So when you attack a planeswalker with this, whatever damage the planeswalker doesn't take, you take. So for example, if your Teferi's on 4 and you put this into the battlefield and you swing on Teferi, Teferi soaks up 4 damage, 3 damage, tramples over to the controller. Again, this is going to be a sweet card for those EDH players, and to be honest with you, it may even see modern play. I mean, think about it. I mean, modern is a format where there's all kinds of decks that do different kinds of things. I mean, you literally could play this in. I'm really gonna go out on a limb here, guys, but like you play this in a Storm deck, you know, because it costs 3 less for each other spell cast this turn. Like you literally could storm off and then lay a 7/7 that's 12. That's a 12 casting cost that they probably can't kill, because the turn it comes into play, it has hexproof as long as it enters. So it literally could be a like in a Storm deck, you literally could Manamorphose, go for the Gusto. If you have this in your hand, you literally could play it, punch them in the face for 7 that they could do nothing about, and then kill them with a Storm spell. Like, I know it's really stretching it, but I mean, come on, guys, we've seen worse, right? And we've seen decks do a lot weirder things. I think this is gonna be a big card in Elves. May give Elves a thing, because you cast 2 or 3 Elves, you know, and start doing the tap and untap and then make lots of mana. This thing may fly onto the table on like turn 4, maybe even turn 3, and Lord help you if that happens. That could just be the end of the game. So, with that said, again, great EDH card. I know it's 12 mana, but it's all kinds of cool stuff on it. So, with that said, we'll move on. Not a bad mythic. We'll see how it goes. Next here we have Yashuri, Fortune's Flame. So it's a blue, red, and a colorless for a 2/3 flyer. Already great on rate. and it's a good flyer. Now for Modern, 3 mana is a bit much, but the ability is when he attacks, you choose a number between 1 and 5, flip that many coins. For each flip you win, draw a card. If you lose a flip, it deals 2 damage to you. If you win 5 flips this way, you may cast spells from your hand this turn for free without paying their mana cost. Because that's always been a good mechanic. Now, thank God it's on a card where you have to get extremely unlucky for your opponent to go, oh, I'm going to draw 5 cards and wreck your world. But at the same time, this can be a very powerful card. And this is going to definitely be a rare that EDH players are going to want because of its wackiness, its weirdness, and just the weird things that it can do. Because, I mean, think of it, too. You may have maybe a stuffy doll or something, with something attached to it, so all the damage goes to it, and you just always say 5, and if you take 2 damage, who cares? You just reflect it to the stuffy doll and just zap somebody else with it in EDH. I think this card is really cool. It's really sweet. I think it'll see a lot of EDH play, which will probably make it probably about a $5 rare. But as far as like in Modern itself, I don't see this being a big game changer. But still, sweet rare. I like the mechanic. It's pretty cool. Really harkens back to things like Frenetic or Freak back in the old days. Next thing we got here, guys. That's right. I saved the best for last. We have a reprint of Cabal coffers. Dun dun dun. And at Mythic at that. Back in the old days, it was rare. Now it's Mythic. So this will help bring the cost of Cabal coffers down a little bit. I don't think it's going to go down a lot because it's a Mythic, but it will go down a little. But this is going to really open up this card's ability to be played in a lot of different EDH decks, which is one of the reasons I think the cost of this card is going to stay high and not retract as much as everybody thinks it will. What that retraction is going to be, I don't know, as I haven't really looked the card prices up yet, because it's, I just got home from work and I'm making this video for you over here on the West Coast. But seeing this card get reprinted in Modern Horizons is nothing but hands down ideal situation that what Wizards should be doing. Now, do I want all these cards reprinted? Not really, because it does impact the value, but in the long run, those old pricey cards with the old art are still holding their ground and worth money. So reprints like this aren't damaging them as much as they used to. And with that said, like I mentioned before, there are so little of these floating around that every EDH player wants that once this comes out, they're going to get scooped up at a high price, and only after demand has been sated will this card start to lose value. So first month or two, this card will probably not see a whole lot of price decrease, I think. But will it happen eventually? Yes, it will, because as before, this is not a limited set. It is a print to demand set. So with that said, please don't play these outrageous prices for these boxes, because all you're doing is making it stay high. But I'll have a video on that later, guys. So moving on to the other sweetness. Next we have, that's right, boys, Dakon Blackblade is here. Dakon the Shadow Slayer, he's finally a Planeswalker. He's only 3 mana. Blue, black, white. He's a mythic. It's sweet. It says here he enters the battlefield, the number of loyalty counters on him equal the number of lands you control. Just like Dakon Blackblade's power was the lands you control when you laid him, this one is what his loyalty is. So late game, if you lay him with like 8 lands on the table, a 3 mana Planeswalker with 8 loyalty when it hits the field, sweet mother of God. Plus he has +1 Surveil too. That's sweet. Put stuff in the graveyard. -3 exile target creature. It's got built-in removal, and then -6 put an artifact card from your hand or graveyard onto the battlefield. Anybody remember the days when Blightsteel Colossus and that big other big artifacts that would hit the battlefield that would just end the game were cheated in, but they can't be cheated in Modern because of all the restrictions and stuff? Yeah, guess what? Those days are back, boys, because on turn 8 you can lay this thing for 3 mana, have 2 counterspell backups, or even on turn 5, as long as you protect him, start surveilling stuff into the graveyard until you find that big creature like a Blightsteel Colossus. Then -6 this bad boy, stick him on the table, and just end your opponent's life. Like, this is epic power level. If you guys don't remember what Wrenn and 6 was like when it first came out, you have no idea what you're in for with this Planeswalker. This thing is just bonkers good, and you could only print something like this in a Modern. There's no way that this would, you put this in Standard, this thing would be insta-banned before it even came out of the set, because people would be so up in arms about it. I mean, this is the kind of card like I would want to see printed straight to Legacy, because this thing is just nuts. Now, with that said, yes, it's nuts. Yes, it's really good. Yes, it's probably broken, but Dakon Blackblade, Big Sexy himself, is back in Magic, and I cannot wait to play Modern. I am going to figure out some Esper deck I can put this boy in because, oh, does this bring back memories from old Dakon Blackblade. I mean, come on, guys. All you old fellas out there, back in the old crew, back in the day, when you're like, hey, check out Dakon Blackblade. Blam. I'm going to kill you dead. Like, this is just Big Sexy himself, one of the staple cards from old Magic. You know, it wasn't broken or anything like that, but it's just, oh, it's just so much nostalgia. He's deserved a Planeswalker card for so long because he is the man. I hope to God he gets a storyline. Yes, for Dakon Blackblade for president. So, with that said, guys, I really do appreciate you guys tuning in to check out these Modern Horizon leaks, spoilers, whatever you want to call them, because I didn't think they were starting already, but apparently I'm a little off on my schedule. Um, these were a surprise to me too. When I came home, and I was sitting at work thumbing through the phone, and I was like, "Oh, what's this?" And I was like, "Oh my God!" So, don't forget, guys, like, subscribe, tell your friends about the channels, keep up on all the news and uh, Magic hysteria from Modern Horizons and even the Dungeons and Dragons sets is coming out by staying tuned to the channel and hitting that like bell. So remember, guys, this is your captain speaking. And until next time, remember to be kind out there, and I'll see you in the next video.